All right, we're starting the FocusMaster training. This is the overview or introduction. It's a bit longer than most introductions would be, but this is a complex and very important section. So we're just going to take our time and do it right. All right, hopefully you've printed out the student guide. And if you haven't printed it out, you can follow along in a separate window on your computer. That will work just fine too. The first thing you're going to come to after you get past the cover and the summary of what we're going to go over, and basically what we are going to go over is the focus plan, why you have it, what it is, why you need it, and then we're going to touch on ideas and initiatives and spend a little bit of time on reviews. It's because that's what makes up the FocusMaster section. So the first page you're going to come to is this little exercise. And I need you to stop the audio and actually do this exercise. It's one, it's fun, and two, it's a little bit of a mind challenge. And if you're in a group, do it as a group and enjoy the discussion because there will be some. All right, so stop the audio or the video and take the time to do this, and then we'll discuss it a little bit. Okay, so I hope by now you've taken the time to fill this out. And like I said, it's very short. I'm hoping you read it over and enjoyed it because it's really enlightening. I mean, this ship is obviously in a lot of trouble. And maybe you came to some agreed upon action that you would do first. But what's really interesting is there's actually no right or wrong answer for this with the information given. You have to make an assumption in order to come up with an answer. And it really will depend on what the goal is. Because some of you are going to assume the goal is to save lives, and that's going to have you do one thing, possibly surrender. Of course, you need to know who the enemy is and how they're likely to react to that. Another one is going to attempt to save the ship at all cost. Well, that's fine as long as if saving the ship means the ship gets captured, that's okay if the cargo on there is something your enemy can get their hands on. If the enemy, maybe there's something on board that you absolutely at all costs cannot let the enemy recover, in which case you probably are going to send the ship to the bottom of the ocean. So there are a lot of different alternatives. The point of the exercise being you need to know your goal. And without it, it's impossible to make a correct decision. And it's also very unlikely that a group will come to consensus and work together on anything. So the goal is incredibly important. And that's what the FocusMaster section is all about. It is about getting clarity about what's important for your organization. Okay, so when you do that, remember, we talked about the 5 keys to thriving. You should have seen that already. And clarity is this wrapper that pulls it all together, and which is the first part of FocusMaster is creating a focus plan. So the focus plan, it becomes the bedrock of everything the organization does and all the decisions it makes. And so what makes up a focus plan is first you decide who you are. What's your purpose? Why do you exist? What are your core values? Okay? And what's your inspirational vision? And hopefully you have one, something that looks down the road and people will say, yes, that's something I would love to take part in. And what exactly do you do and not do? Now, some places, you'd be surprised the number of places that can't really say what it is they exactly do. All right? Now, when you know who you are and why you exist and what you're going to do, well then how exactly are you going to do? That's a strategy, and we keep it simple, all right? And the last thing that is, well, there's a little bit more to it, but the last major part is what's important right now. You need a focus almost all the time. You need a theme, like for the next 3 to 9 months, what's the most important thing we can accomplish? And you need to name it and go for it, all right? So that's the parts of a focus plan. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see, and the screen may be slightly different when you're taking the course, but these parts make up the green bars on the left. And every one of them, if you click it, it'll show what your, as you fill it out, and you can fill it out just by clicking on the edit button. And of course, if you click the yellow button inside that window, it'll tell you about what that, like this focal point we're looking at is core values, and it'll show you what those are. And that's the case for every one of these. Okay, so that's what a focus plan is. Now, what makes, now, why do you need one? Okay, because without clarity, your teammates can't really work together because they don't know for sure what to work on. Decisions can't be made with any consistency. And how are people going to know if they want to engage with or disengage with your business? You know, having the right people in the right place is incredibly important. And yet, how do you really know who fits and who doesn't? And how do they know if they're a fit if you don't have clarity about exactly what you're doing? All right, so that's why you need it. It really, without clarity, you cannot have an aligned team. And the last thing is, what makes a good focus plan? Now, there's a focus plan in the study materials. You can look at that. It's an older one for Arena Success Group, but it'll give you some guidelines, and there's no such thing as a perfect focus plan. They all have faults, so don't worry about that, but it'll just give you a guideline. But a good focus plan, it's got to be short enough that it can be communicated to somebody in under 30 minutes. It must be understandable to everybody in the organization. If it's written with jargon or things that a new hire couldn't understand, that's probably not a good focus plan. It must be used, or it's just another piece of paper. You know, and that's the key. And we're going to get to, that's why reviews are so important. When we get to it, you'll understand it better. But if it's not used, if you do this and it gets put away till the next quarterly meeting, don't waste your time, okay? It has to be available and actually communicated. Just because it can be communicated in under a half hour doesn't mean it is always communicated. And it's got to be available to everybody in the organization. There's nothing secretive about this. This is something you should be proud of and want to share with everybody in the organization. And lastly, it needs to be used to hold people accountable, both up and down the organization. In other words, in the long run, you want your organization to be someplace where anybody who works there can go talk to someone if it has this many layers, 2 or 3 layers above them, and say, your plan says this, but this isn't what we're doing. And the same going down. And when people start to hold each other accountable to do what is actually in the plan, you'll achieve alignment. And if you have alignment and buy-in, you can accomplish amazing things. Okay, so we're done with that section. The next section is about ideas and initiatives, because that's what once you get the focus plan, then you can decide what to measure and what you're going to do. Thank you. And remember, life's never going to be a walk in a park, so don't go on a walk, go on an adventure.